Her name, Anna Karenina, slips across your lips like the taste of dark chocolate, rich, slightly bitter, and unforgettable. You follow her steps, her hymn brushing the platform with a whispery rhythm, and you sense in her a kind of magnetic contradiction. She is both grounded and untouchable, a figure who makes you believe that happiness could be contained in one glance, and yet, perhaps, never really held. There's Levin nearby, restless, fidgeting, his thoughts bound up with Kitty, who is waiting for something that might or might not happen. You recognize his unease. Haven't you felt that same twisting knot in your chest when you weren't sure if the one you longed for would look your way? That anxious shuffle of hands, that desperate hope? Human longing doesn't change with centuries. And then there's Vronsky, smooth, confident, carrying himself like a man who has never known the sting of rejection. He has that easy charm, the way some people tilt their head, smile with half their mouth, and suddenly the room forgets itself. He notices Anna almost at once, as if the crowd has parted just for him to see her. You watch the moment spark between them, a flicker in the eyes, a fraction of a second longer than courtesy requires. A small thing, yet it sends a ripple through everything. The way dropping a pebble into still water rearranges the whole surface. Anna greets her brother, Oblonsky, with warmth, though beneath her calm you sense her keen awareness of the room. She is a woman trained to read faces, to catch what is unspoken. She can tell when affection masks disappointment, when a smile hides judgment. You wonder if she notices your gaze too, following the lift of her hand, the way her fur-lined glove brushes snowflakes from her sleeve. Perhaps she does, and perhaps she doesn't. Either way, you can't look away. Later, in her brother's house, Anna listens to the household's soft chaos. Children laughing, doors creaking, the muffled scoldings of a governess. She leans against a chair, and you notice how her fingers tap the carved wood in a slow rhythm. A private drumbeat of thought, a small, almost quirky detail, but it makes her human, this woman who seems so impossibly composed. You imagine she taps not from impatience, but from the secret storm inside her. You drift closer, and there's Kitty, glowing with youthful anticipation, ready for a proposal from Vronsky, not knowing how her evening, her life, might shift under the weight of someone else's choices. You almost want to warn her. Haven't you ever wished you could step back into your younger self's shoes and whisper, "Don't put all your hopes into that one fragile possibility"? But of course you don't, you just watch. That night, as Anna lies in her guest room, snow pressing against the window, you sense her restlessness. She is away from her son, her home, her carefully arranged life. The stillness leaves too much space for thought. She smooths her hair back and stares at her own reflection, but faintly by candlelight. There's a tired honesty in her eyes. For a moment, she lets the weight of her role slip. Wife, mother, sister, friend, and she just breathes. You feel the ache of it, the human truth that sometimes even love and family are not enough to quiet the deeper hunger within. Morning arrives with the brittle brightness of winter sun. Anna is drawn toward the station again, as if her steps already know where they're headed, though her mind hasn't yet admitted it. She sees Vronsky, his figure framed against the pale sky. He smiles, and it is both respectful and daring, the kind of smile that belongs more to secrets than to greetings. You see her lips respond before she can stop them. And here, for just a heartbeat, the world feels suspended. You stand at the edge of a story not yet written, but already inevitable. You can almost hear it in the air, the hum of something beginning, something that will not be contained. You wonder, even as you follow along, is this love, or is it fate pretending to be love? And does the difference even matter when your heart insists on answering before your mind can catch up? The ballroom glows as though each candle has conspired to outshine the other, gilding the chandeliers until they seem like galaxies scattered overhead. You slip inside with the rest of the guests, your eyes pulled as if by gravity to the swirl of silk gowns, and the gleam of polished boots. Music swells, violins racing with heartbeat tempo, and already you can feel anticipation curling through the crowd. An unspoken agreement that someone will define the evening. Kitty is there, luminous in her pale dress, cheeks flushed with hope. She waits for Vronsky with a kind of innocent certainty, her gaze darting toward the door each time it opens. You remember that feeling, don't you? That restless ache of scanning a room for one face, convinced that everything depends on their next glance. It is sweet, almost painful in its tenderness, the way young love believes itself invincible. And then Anna enters, her gown black, sleek as midnight, yet somehow brighter than all the colors in the room. Against the backdrop of pastel silks and embroidered finery, she is a shadow that outshines light. You watch as conversations pause, fans still mid-flutter, and even Kitty's eyes widen with something that is not quite jealousy, not quite awe. The room recognizes it instantly. Anna has become its center. Vronsky does too. He cannot disguise it. His posture changes, his breath catches in the smallest way. And you know, in that secret, unavoidable way of knowing that he will not leave tonight unchanged. He makes his way to her, confident, smiling, and offers his hand. She accepts with a grace that pretends not to know the storm it will cause. They move together across the floor, their steps matching effortlessly, as if the music itself is made for them. You trace the lines of their bodies, her head tilting just so, his arms steady at her back, and you feel the air shift around them. It is not the dance alone, but the undercurrent of something forming, something dangerous because it feels so natural. Poor Kitty. She watches, her lips parted, the color draining from her cheeks as though the light itself has betrayed her. You ache for her because who hasn't stood in the corner of some evening, realizing that the story you thought belonged to you has been handed to someone else? It's a human wound, sharp and unforgettable, the moment when your dream is claimed by another's hands. Anna dances, and for once she forgets everything else, the husband waiting at home, the son asleep in his bed, the carefully balanced duties of her life. In this moment, she is only a woman, alive in the touch of another's hand, carried by music that seems to hush the rest of the world. You feel her pulse in the rhythm of her steps and the slight catch of her breath. And yet, you notice something quieter, almost hidden, the way her fingers press a little too firmly into Vronsky's arm. The fleeting look she casts toward Kitty as though she knows the price of this attention. Anna is not blind. She sees the ripple her presence creates, and still she allows herself to float within it. Maybe that is the true danger, not ignorance, but the deliberate choice to embrace what could undo her. Later, as the evening softens, you catch Anna retreating to a corner, a glass untouched in her hand. She looks around the room, and for a heartbeat you see her doubt. The music is still playing, but she hears something else, a whisper that this cannot last, that happiness is never so easily offered. Her eyes flicker, searching, as though she wishes to step outside her own allure. Vronsky finds her again, of course. He bends toward her, speaking words you cannot hear over the violin, but you read them in his expression. Admiration, longing, a question he does not yet dare to ask aloud. And Anna listens, her lashes lowering, her mouth curving in a smile that is both tender and cautious. She knows the cost of answering. Still, she does not pull away. Somewhere across the hall, Kitty forces a smile, but her hands tremble as she folds her fan. She has been left standing in her own silence, and you feel the weight of it, the crushing realization that what she imagined as her story has shifted beyond her control. You have been there too, in the quiet moment after a dream slips through your fingers, when even laughter around you feels like a sharp echo of what you've lost. As the guests begin to leave, snow drifting against the windows, you linger with Anna one last time before she departs. She wraps herself in her shawl, and there's a flicker in her expression, a mingling of guilt and exhilaration. Her cheeks are flushed, not from the chill outside, but from the dangerous warmth inside. She has danced with something more than a partner tonight. She has danced with a possibility. And you still wonder as she steps into the carriage, her breath clouding the glass, is it love blooming here? Or is it only the illusion of love, dressed up in music and candlelight? Perhaps she asks herself the same question, even as she cannot stop the smile that lingers on her lips. The garden is quiet now, lit only by lanterns whose light spills like molten gold over frost-tipped bushes. You follow Anna along the winding paths, her gloves tucked into her muff, the air sharp against her cheeks. Vronsky walks beside her, each step deliberate, each glance intentional, as if the world beyond the hedges no longer exists. The rustle of their coats, the occasional squeak of a gate hinge the faint crunch of snow. Beneath boots, these small sounds make the space intimate, almost conspiratorial, as though nature itself conspires to keep them apart from prying eyes. Anna pauses near a cluster of lilacs that will bloom in spring, still dormant under the frost. She exhales slowly, and you see it, the release of tension, the brief letting go of the rolls that weigh her down. You felt this yourself, the way a breath can carry away days of restraint, leaving only the raw, unguarded self exposed. It is a fleeting liberation, fragile as a snowflake, yet in it, she seems unassailably alive. Vronsky leans slightly closer, and for a heartbeat, their shadows mingle on the garden path. You notice the micro details, the way he hesitates before speaking, the way she shifts her weight as if considering the consequences of a single word. Human desire is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It whispers, nudges, lingers in pauses and half smiles. And here it does just that, tender and precarious, like a candle flame that could be extinguished by a single misstep. You recall the moment when Anna touched the hem of her glove, just barely grazing his sleeve, a tiny gesture but electric in its implications. Her fingers trembled subtly, a quiet betrayal of composure. You've seen that same gesture in your own life, the almost imperceptible sign that your heart is beating faster than it should, that your mind knows something your lips dare not speak. Vronsky clears his throat softly, voice low. You imagine the words he might offer, an observation, a question, a hint of his fascination. Anna smiles faintly, the kind of smile that acknowledges a truth too complicated for casual conversation. She tilts her head toward him, and there is a pause, the air stretched taut between them. You feel it as though you are holding your own breath, caught in anticipation of what might pass between two people on the brink of change. A foxglove bends under the weight of frost, petals shimmering faintly in the lantern light. Anna notices it, brushing her fingers along the stem. You catch her fleeting reflection in a nearby window, eyes luminous, cheeks warmed, lips pressed into a line that is almost a sigh. There is an intimacy here, a soft communication that requires no spoken word. She is aware of the thrill, the peril, the unspoken question of whether they should step closer or apart. Somewhere behind the hedges, laughter drifts faintly, guests returning to their homes, unaware of this quiet drama unfolding. The world continues, oblivious to the way hearts edge toward one another in secret. You sense Anna's inner turmoil, the delicate balancing act between her loyalty, her duty, and the pull of something irrepressible. You have been there too, at the crossroads of what is safe and what feels inevitable, caught between reason and longing. They speak finally in hushed tones that barely disturb the stillness. Vronsky's words are measured, careful, a soft insistence that she notice him, truly notice him beyond appearances and proprieties. Anna responds with equal delicacy, her voice of velvet thread, steady yet trembling with emotion she cannot fully suppress. The conversation winds like a gentle current, carrying them closer with each sentence, each glance, each almost touch. You see it now, the small gestures that define human connection. The way her eyes linger on his for a fraction longer than politeness, requires the slight tilt of her head toward him, the half step she takes to meet him. You still wonder if it is love or comfort, thrill or curiosity, the beginning of a bond that will demand everything she knows about herself. It is impossible to separate desire from danger when the stakes are so intimate, when every moment carries both promise and risk. Eventually, they turn to leave the garden, lanterns swinging softly in their hands. You follow quietly, noting the way they move together, almost in sync, almost as if the night itself is guiding their steps. You feel that peculiar ache that comes from witnessing a private moment of connection, knowing that you are both an observer and a participant, carried along by the invisible current of someone else's choices. And as they vanish down the garden path, leaving frost and lantern glow behind, you can't help but wonder what tomorrow will bring. The world outside these walls feels simultaneously ordinary and fragile, and you realize that those small details, the brushing of a glove, the glance that lingers, are what shape everything to come. The night holds its breath, and so do you, caught in the quiet wonder of possibility. Shadows stretch across the walls of Anna's home, long and languid, as evening settles in with its quiet insistence. You follow her up the staircase, each step echoing softly, her hand brushing the polished banister in a gesture both habitual and absent-minded. The house is familiar, comforting, yet it carries the weight of expectations. The husband waiting, the child asleep, the careful patterns of daily life that have been established and maintained for years. You sense her awareness of it all, a gentle but insistent tug against the pull of something entirely different. Karenina sits in his study, papers spread before him, the low lamplight casting a glow over his meticulous features. He looks up as she enters, eyes briefly meeting hers, then returning to the world of documents and figures. There is a quiet love here, you can tell, a devotion shaped by order and consistency rather than passion or whim. You've known such steadiness yourself, the comfort of someone reliable, the subtle warmth that comes from knowing that no matter the storm outside, someone is always anchored in the same place. Anna moves through the house with the grace of someone used to command, yet there is a restlessness in her steps tonight. You notice the way she pauses by the window, hands folded over her chest, her reflection framed in the dark glass. Outside, the world is quiet, the winter wind pressing against the panes, and you can almost hear the small, private sigh that escapes her lips. It is a sigh of longing, of consideration, of the endless, intricate push and pull between desire and duty. Vronsky's presence lingers in her mind like an echo. She recalls the curve of his smile, the tilt of his head under the ballroom lights, and the brush of his fingers in the garden. You can almost feel it yourself, the magnetic pull of someone whose proximity shifts everything you thought you knew about yourself. She wonders, not for the first time, if it is possible to care for two lives at once, or if the heart must always betray one for the other. You notice the small details, the way she arranges the teacups on the tray, aligning them with obsessive precision, and yet her fingers shake just enough to betray her mind wandering. She pours the tea carefully, then pauses, looking at the rising steam and tracing its path with a fingertip, as though mapping her own uncertainty. This is a human moment, intimate and relatable, where composure meets vulnerability, and you are drawn in as though leaning close to witness a secret. Karenin speaks, his voice calm, measured, filled with a kind of concern that is as habitual as the ticking clock on the mantel. He asks about her day, about the journey, about the children, and you see her nod politely, offering words that are correct, reassuring, and soothing. Yet inside, her thoughts drift to Vronsky again, to the brush of his sleeve, to the quiet moments in the garden where every word mattered more than duty allowed. You feel her pull in both directions, like a leaf caught between two streams, unsure which current will carry her farther. She walks to the piano in the parlor, running her fingers lightly over the keys, producing notes that fill the room with gentle, tentative music. It is a small rebellion, an assertion of self, a way to occupy the space between her inner desires and the responsibilities that demand attention. You watch her face, the subtle lift of her eyebrows, the way her lips press together in concentration and thought. There is a complexity here that is quietly mesmerizing. Evening stretches on, and Anna retires to her private chamber. The room is dim, only a single lamp casting a soft glow over familiar furniture. She sinks into an armchair, wrapping herself in a shawl, and allows a moment of honesty. Her heart races not with fear, but with the lingering thrill of what she glimpsed earlier. She remembers Vronsky's hand near hers, his voice, his glance, and wonders if this is merely a fleeting fancy or something more enduring. You can feel the tension in her chest, the subtle oscillation between guilt and longing, and you recognize it because you have felt it too. The human ache of wanting something you are not supposed to. She writes a brief note to her son, smooth and tender, the careful words revealing all the love she carries for him, and yet leaving space for the yearning that cannot be expressed. You notice how her hand trembles slightly, betraying the complexity of her emotions, the way responsibility and desire wage a silent battle inside her. There's a quiet bravery in this, the courage to continue, to survive, even while the heart wanders elsewhere. Before sleep, she stands at the window again, looking out over the quiet winter streets. The night holds its breath, the world soft by snow and shadow, and you sense her inner dialogue, the tug of loyalty, the lure of passion, and the uncertainty of what tomorrow may bring. You follow her thoughts as she wonders if happiness can be shared or if it demands sacrifice, if love is a balm or a weight. And in that quiet moment, you realize that sometimes the most human stories unfold in the spaces between heartbeats, in the gentle, almost imperceptible decisions that shape a lifetime. The station is immense, cold, and echoing, the iron rails stretching endlessly beneath the pale winter light. You walk beside Anna, feeling the tension in her every movement, the subtle quiver of her breath as if the very air around her is heavier than usual. The platform hums with distant footsteps, the clatter of luggage, the faint whistle of a train approaching, but all of it fades against the pulse of her thoughts. She moves forward with a purpose that is fragile yet resolute, each step measured, as though she is balancing on the thin edge between life and something else entirely. Vronsky is there, watching, his presence steady but unable to reach the depth of her inner storm. His hand hovers close to hers, not daring to bridge the distance fully, as though even his touch might shatter her resolve. You see her glance toward him, eyes bright with fear, longing, and the heavy burden of impossible choices. She knows, as you know, that what lies ahead cannot be undone, and the weight of that knowledge presses down on her chest. The train comes into view, steam curling around its wheels like restless spirits. The sound is sharp, metallic, and insistent, and Anna feels it echoing inside her own mind, a relentless reminder of inevitability. You notice the way she pauses at the edge of the platform, glancing over the tracks, the weight of the decision anchoring her feet, even as the momentum of despair urges her forward. Her gloves are tight in her hands, her muff pressed close, but they cannot shield her from the tremor in her own body, the quiet quiver that comes when fear and hopelessness collide. Vronsky calls her name softly, voice trembling, careful, but she does not turn. His presence is insufficient to hold her back. He cannot cross the chasm of despair that has opened inside her. You watch as she steps closer to the edge, her mind flickering through memories. The ballroom, the garden, fleeting touches, stolen words, the love and longing that have carried her through these months. Each memory is a thread, a fragile reminder of what she has risked and what she has lost. The train approaches faster now, a relentless rhythm that mirrors the beating of her heart. Anna exhales, a breath that is more surrender than relief. Time stretches and bends. You feel it slow, hold, and then accelerate in a sudden, uncontainable surge. She steps forward. The platform, the rails, the snow beneath her feet, all blur in a swirl of inevitability and finality. Vronsky reaches out, desperation in his eyes, but it is too late. Her figure tilts forward, a fleeting silhouette against the steel and steam. There is a fleeting, terrible grace in the motion, a tragic poetry that holds the weight of all she has felt: love, desire, guilt, fear, and the longing for freedom she could not otherwise claim. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the stillness that follows, the quiet that settles over the rails, and the whispers of the crowd who cannot comprehend the depth of what has just occurred. Her absence leaves a hollow ache in the air, a ripple of sorrow that travels far beyond the station, far beyond the reach of anyone standing there. Vronsky bends, helpless, his fingers brushing the empty space where her hand had been. The world continues around them, unaware, ordinary, and unyielding. Yet the weight of her choice lingers like a shadow, a reminder that love, in its purest and most urgent form, can both illuminate and destroy. You feel the echo of that moment long after the train has gone, the way a story imprints itself on memory. Anna's life, brief and brilliant, now belongs entirely to memory and imagination, a fragile testament to desire, courage, and the human heart's uncontainable longing. And in that silence, you realize that some stories leave you holding both grief and awe, a quiet recognition that beauty and tragedy are often inseparable.